response task force. I suggest we start with a prayer if we could. And John, I kind of volunteer, John. Yeah. Let's do the prayer first, then we'll do the fights.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time together. We ask that it would be a blessing. We ask that it would arrange things in case there ever is a need, that everything would be in place. Give us wisdom, give us understanding in what to do, and bless everyone here now. Thank
Will help us with it. We'll do both. Chris, you can help me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Each and one nation under God. I pledge allegiance to the United States one state under God. One to the back way. Yeah, it's important to do that. I don't think they can do it. All right, again, welcome to the monthly CRTF meeting. I would like to go around the room and introduce ourselves and let me know who's here, both here and online. So my name is Philly, and I've been involved with CRTF since basically day -1. And I was fairly new to American business I was in, and Katrina hit, Rita hit, and I just couldn't believe I was in America. I like to tell the story with just a little bit of perspective. I found a demanding disaster more than anything else. So, you know, the business owner kind of thing, you do your thing. And then after Rita Katrina, I got approached by the Emerald Fire Department and I'm looking at you. You know, like, only we need to do something about it. Okay. So, over a pizza at Fields, we decided we were going to do this, which we didn't have a name. And I hosted, that was my role. And it had a brief hosting memory. And back then it was standing room. I remember one time they had a meeting, I could see them. All I was doing was serving coffee. But then I got a name, a bit of a structure, a name, and I needed a board. And for the board, we had to throw our name in a hat. And we would never win anything, guess what? So I put it top, so I don't mind it. And you know, through the years, we, like any organization, go ups and downs. But the community response has been wonderful. Of course, we need a disaster to market this thing, but we're ready more than ever. You know, we have our website, please, you know, visit it often. We announce our future programs, and a lot of other things, of course. And then a year ago, we launched our app. So it's important to market our app. They call it the key. You know, when something happens, and because we may think it's other people needing stuff, but it's really all us. So it's the haves and have-nots, matching that up. In the first, you know, 72, 96 of that for disaster, before the government can come in and do what they need to do. It's us helping us. You know, we need a must. And okay, I can have the best visibility. I need comps. Oh, I'm having the moose like that. And oops, there's water. And that's a good example. There's water. Can't get it here. Well, I've got to vote. And that's where the community starts helping the community. And that's what we do. It's the yield. So it's a tool for our communities, and the marketing of it seems to have been the biggest challenge getting it over out. So help us with that on our website, the brochures, or really all of us the board going, you know, through presentations at meetings, any meeting anywhere. So we're all so many of us believe, and that's kind of my history with it. The board is, we didn't have a board meeting, but Leroy's here, Leroy Harrison is the treasurer. And Lynn had a medical claim, so she had to resign, but it's, and the other one, Leroy took over the secretary as well. So he's taking a job. Yes, it's a job. And then, of course, Robertson, who's a member at large. So there's just a three of us doing it for some reason. I don't know the reasons, but I'm not going to do it. Anyway, I'll go around the room. Probably this, probably my daughter. So, on Chelsea.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Well, and then I had interviewed 2.5 years ago, that's beside the point, but. Yeah, and that is going through a life.
on there. It's very convenient. All right, we're up with Rotary. She's a Rotary. The speaker, I'll introduce in a little bit. Bob, kind of comment about you. I don't know if you want to add anything. Care radio. Radio, okay. Take it. See what I'm adding them. Good. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. That's your man. John. Yeah. I know. And what do you guys say?
Prayer. My name is Michael. I'll just kind of listen to what God's doing in our community. Try to inform parts of the community that don't know. With my church relationship, Dima, and just personally keep my ears to the ground and see what's coming. So we're ready and just encourage.
The churches are, supposed. Well, let me put it this way, they were part of a marketing plan, because they seem to be the opposite. But to help us with CRTF. And we have found that we were barking at so anything to help us, because churches tend to cater to their claim first. And again, churches are people.
They would actually focus on that, if I might add to that, when it comes to food safety right now. There are many churches that are deciding that they need to begin to provide some food safety for their people. And so that still contributes, right, to community. And there's going to be overlap, there's going to be watch care from different people, different skills and relationships that come into play, right, that are natural. But we do want to have a focus with our churches as to, okay, it's not just we, but it's we too and you, so hopefully that'll be fine.
My name's Jen Carlstrom. I work for various districts and I'm their community liaison. So I try to work with other local nonprofits, obviously to serve folks in need. I also work for Humble ISC and I specifically focus families that are either in between housing situation, meaning they don't have a fixed regular residence or are experiencing some sort of economic challenges and connect them with resources. So, and it's basically like a one-stop social service communication, cover basic needs, food, and clothing. They assist housing systems, financial needs. They've now kind of grown to provide wraparound services that help folks get employment. We're focusing on youth. Like get them connected once they graduate. And basically keep people housed. So it's lots in this area that we're very green lots. And on the half of my sense. Part. There's. Because it's. Yeah. You should. You know, this like a site.
Yeah, and Ham was just one of the people that. One of the things that really were, the reason for CRTF. The need for that, really was here at spoke, voluntary emergencies. You'll just have to. So I'm gonna go to.
Yeah, rotary and private club, it's not like they're private, you know, it's like. Your products, fairly, you distribute like food for the poor and you feel like it's. I have with that, seminary methods. Well, they do give a lot of. Like that. So you call it seminary methods. Church, I don't know, Florence. So it's like this one. Basically, the others.
Yeah, Burberry's wonderful thing, they're also funding us. Been over the years. Major. Source. They are. And. Earl is the vice president, he's late. Never to leave. Okay, we're, please go visit our website, you know, use it as a resource, if it's helping out, post, let us know. You know, organizations that support us, we don't have memberships, there's no membership dues, but we have partners. And that's what we are, and we're only as good as our partners. And over the years, our partners, if they came in 20 years ago, they were kind of desperate, kind of lost that ability between them. And through CRTF, through that platform, they kind of became themselves. You know, I saw the hospital's emergency managers kind of go in. I mean, never felt that. So, but we're still in research. And so what we are trying to are doing is to be that one-stop shop. You know, I have a need, throw it out there. You know, what can we do for you? Go home as good as our partners has us to spread the word. Because people they'll click on our app, go like, oh, needs, I can help, you know, and it's fast. Where, you know, communication may not work well, et cetera, et cetera. And the example of pots, looking at you and was a handling. You know, we had the flood, the church needed pots. Well, nowhere to be found. So we put it out there. Right away we got a reply, we have them. Right away the reaction, we can't get it to them. Right away the reply, we have votes. And they got that for something, it was 80 pots. And with the 80 helped 80 people many days, weeks. And so what is it we're doing? I don't know. You know, because we can't really measure. And that's not purpose for not a business. How much do we sell today? Which really big. It's getting even communicating like fast. And then the official organizations kind of like it because we take that credit from, you know, they don't have time to talk to us. You know, they've got riches still, they've got peace, and then come to us. So that's kind of where we come in. We're also offering programs, interesting programs that you can address at the college programs we can offer them. So next month, and me, I resisted it for the longest time because this is about fentanyl, and I didn't consider that a forest fire or flood or an airplane or crash it or you know, trade of chemicals degraded in the our community. I thought that's not emergency, but it is. And so next month is going to be a 90-minute training session. It'll also be available online. And the reaction has been great, you know, from the community. So when, you know, the conversations I've had, the entity gets so involved, so we're gonna do some press releases about it. And post on our website, because this is really exceptional that we can do that. It'll teach us about the product, what it's doing, where, how we can identify people that are, dealing with it, because it's not always visible, where they can go with resources, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a 90-minute training session. There's a lot of organizations out there that can use this knowledge. So that's that. And then in October, same kind of thing, family issues. And, we all see, so may not be a forest fire, but it is, it's really not. So we're trying to offer a variety of programs. And, if you can't come first, you can get on. And, as well. I don't know, any announcements from the board at this point?
Yeah, I mean, as far as what we just partnered with Humble ISC and they Houston Family Law to distribute about initially it was 3,000 school supply kits, and then we ran out, and then we got about 1,500 more. So that was distributed along with immunization. So Christus Mobile Health was a partner, and they were able to come and give about 15 kids free immunizations. And they also had some of the graduates or current students, like Steve Barbershop and hospitality program, cut the kids' hair, which is great. We have a lot of families in our school district that have a hard time accessing technology. So hopefully that's one of the things, that technology is a hard thing. So we had some of the LYSD staff to help them with their kids. These kids have to get enrolled every year. And so it was a neat coming together of the community, because there was an office there to register people to vote, help with the cards for the families there. So that was what we just did. Our next big campaign will be a community-wide gathering for all seasons of sharing, which is for Thanksgiving and for the holidays in December, about getting food so that families have extra food and a special holiday meal, along with a community-wide choice that parents can come and shop for their children for free. And that's what, we partnered with and a lot of community partners in order to allow this opportunity. And obviously Rotary is great, partnered with that volunteer. And it's just a great opportunity so that we're putting the dignity and respect back into just because we're in need doesn't mean that you don't want to pick out your own things for kids. So that's what we're going to be focusing on for November and December.
Well, thank you. All right, let me introduce our speaker. Thank you, Lauren, for accepting our invite. Mr. Warren Porter has a master's degree from the University of Maryland, Baltimore County in Emergency Health Services. He served over 18 years in the Army and was medically retired. In addition to military service, Mr. Porter has over 30 years of experience in emergency services, serving in both fire service and emergency medicine service. Mr. Porter worked in emergency management with Spring ISD, as well as worked as a regional clinical director for the EMS agency, covering 16 states, where he managed the patient transfer of Ebola patients from Dallas to the CDC in Atlanta. Mr. Porter managed teams of medical responders and public health teams during disasters, and was awarded the Texas Department of State Health Services Person of the Year. For his efforts with hurricane evacuees, medical care, and shelters. Mr. Porter is an instructor at the Texas Department of Emergency Management with me. So it's my pleasure. Thank you. Same thing that. Yeah, it works out. Okay. That work, hopefully it'll be allowed for the personnel. Well, good afternoon. I am very formal, very. I have a lot for a while, so I'm informal. I look at this as a discussion. My thought was that there is some topics or some issues that I'll talk about, you probably have already known about. And it doesn't hurt to come back over some time to look at it in a new perspective. That's what I'm trying to do. As he said, I've done this for a while, so I take everything down to a base level. So I was a firefighter. Actually, I was here during Martin, I was in Saskatoon. Office right across the hall. So work from that, and I learned to do everything ABC. So no matter what happens in life, when you get to making evaluations, there with breathing circulation, I do the same thing no matter what I do. I just go back and evaluate what's important, what's next important, the third important, and then go from there and make my plan and reevaluate. So I just want to talk about that. I thought about a practical way to that maybe you could help take it to other people. That's kind of what my hope is. So that's the part, I mean, that we sure, that's about it. So but again, I got the master's degree in emergency health services. That's really a system design. So it's 1/3 emergency management, 1/3 emergency public health, and 1/3 out of hospital system design. So that I preceded a lot of the emergency management degrees. So with that, I was in the Army, I was infantry, I was combat medic, and I was recruited. I put in recognition one level of units. It was a paratrooper with the 82nd, I was a ranger, and I was also in Panama and Korea. Fire service, the yellow truck factory in Annapolis, so I worked there, which is the state capital Maryland. So I worked there as a firefighter, paramedic, a rescue tech, and also in the hazmat. I've done about 20 years of emergency management, so I actually started in Annapolis where we did stuff, we provided advanced life support to the naval government. So presidential visits for the graduations, NATO chiefs, other high-level military services. We were the ones that created those plans to help support that. So President Clinton came in, President Bush, I helped coordinate those with the Secret Service so that he would have coverage all the way through and then I'll take care of him and other VIPs. So I did that, and this is changing without my touching, so that's really awesome. So I'm gonna do a high level overview of risk management. My goal was just to kind of make it some alignment, and this is going crazy here. So I think I'm gonna give it a second because it's gonna run past me and I'm just gonna have to stop. So anyway, so high level. 5 phases of emergency management. There's prevention, there's mitigation, there's preparedness, there's response and recovery. So I want to go over those terms just so we kind of align it. Prevention is doing something that stops something from occurring, right? Fire prevention is the obvious one. What do you do to make sure that something does not occur? Mitigation comes in is if you know it's going to occur. We're going to get rain sooner or later. Not soon, but it will come. And when it comes, we know here, it will come in a deluge. It will not come as a nice little 3-day soaking. It's going to come 5 inches in 2 hours, right? So mitigation is how do we lessen the effects of something that's going to occur? We can't stop that. Preparedness is now we're taking an active step in how do we address that issue, whatever that issue is, and we're preparing ourselves to respond. All right. Response obviously is if something occurs and we got to respond. And then recovery. Recovery is the longest thing that we have to deal with because recovery starts right after the incident starts, but it goes for years. So Harvey, we're still having grants that are dealing with post-Harvey stuff. Now that is what 5-6 years have passed. So I did another representation of when I teach the team myself that I did this and I did this because it's easy for people to see. We call it boom. All right. Boom is whatever incident occurred. All right. So we have left of boom, we have right of boom. Left of boom is everything you do beforehand. All right. So on the left hand side, you got prevention. We talked about that. So you got prevention, you got preparedness. And slightly left of the boom is mitigation. Again, because mitigation is carrying on the last event that we had. So whatever we're doing from Harvey or other incidents, that's still coming on as a continue. All right. And then we've got response. So response immediately. Boom happens, we respond. Recovery comes in, as I said. So when we teach FEMA classes to emergency managers and everyone else,
the question is, when does recovery start? At the time of the disaster, as soon as it starts, we have to start thinking about recovery. Why? Because if we wait 3 weeks to get into recovery mode, things will take so long to progress. So you need to make sure you're doing something to recover. Schools are a great example. Schools do not want to be shelters. Why? Because if we can get kids back into the schools, people have a better sense that things are improving. So you don't want to utilize schools unless you have to be long-term shelters. They can be lily pads. And it's often again. Sorry. Maybe back there. And so this is what the whole idea is, that recovery we have to deal with. So we start from the beginning when as soon as it ends. And in all our planning as emergency managers, it's always about when are we recovering? What are we doing? If it's just the one step of ordering drywall, I need, 3 boxes, 3 truckloads of drywall or something. We start there, right? Because supply chain, and of course, you can see mitigation is the long line back and forth. Hopefully that makes sense. But we use that term left of boom, right of boom, because that helps them orient exactly. That circle sometimes gets people confused, but if you put it this way, it looks a little easier to. All right, now we'll go over here. So general emergency management. You were talking about, Lee was talking about networking. This is emergency management. It's all about, I know about everything we do. You can do all the technical stuff. If you don't know who to talk to, you're going to know. We do hazard vulnerability analysis. I didn't know if you guys were familiar with that, but I'll discuss that in a second. And the other thing we do is the capabilities and capacity. And then finally we get down to gaps analysis, which essentially is where's the holes in the plans and where we need to fix. All right, so I'm going to take a little bit just to go over this. And again, I'm sure you guys have learned this, and that's what we're trying to reorient so that we're all on the same page. So I put in, by the way, I talk fast, so I come from up north. Like that. If you want to know that, it's gonna say, well, all right. But service management is a network. Again, so I'll use my Spring ISD. So we knew that if we had an active shooting and something happened and I had to unify our school. So Santa Fe had about 1,700 kids. I had schools of 3,500 in a high school. Humble has the same thing. So it's all the schools are 3,000 plus kids. So what do you do when you take 3,000 kids and take them somewhere and say, get them home? Well, one thing that occurs is when I was actually at TNC for a while, and Texas Children's did a study, and they figured they took a bus and they said if we have a school bus that was injured and all the kids came to Texas Children's, how many people would show up? And it averaged 8 adults per child. So think about an active shooting. Who's going to go and try to help kids? It's the husband and wife, aunts, uncles, grandparents, neighbors, friends, and anyone else who happens to know them from a church or somewhat similar group saying, I got your kid, just bring all the kids to me and we'll go. So you've got all those people involved. Now, what does that do to the system? So if you're doing all those cell phones, it's doing great. But I have a little trick on my thing. So as an emergency manager, I can go and take any cell tower that I want to. I pick up my phone, put in a number, and any cell phone that I am touching is now on. You cannot talk on it, it kick you off. Well, that's really great for me because now I can talk to anyone I want to, but what do you do? So we knew that we had to have a plan on how do we reestablish cell service when I'm dealing with 3,500 kids and at least 3,500 parents coming all at one time. How do we do it? We knew that, so Texas City ISD actually has a communications trailer where they can come in, they can pull up, and within 10 minutes have cell service established. So now that frees me up to take what I need to do my communication, but it also allows people to talk because you could take 3,500 parents, 3,500 kids, and they can't talk to each other. What happens? A lot of very frustrated people on both sides. You don't do compliance, you have a lot of people getting mad, and that's a bad situation because you already have tension level high. Does that make sense? So that's the kind of stuff. So knowing that I can go get a communications trigger, or knowing that I can go pull something from another school district or another entity, I can call precinct 3 or precinct 4 and grab something. I can pull anywhere in Harris County. It's a phone call. And the great part is I called one precinct person, councilman, and said, I need, and not a problem. Give me your list, send it to me, he made a phone call. So it's all about knowing somebody. So I don't have to do that for myself. And part of that network is sharing ideas. So It's amazing that if someone writes a nice plan on how to do an active shooter, most of us will, we share it because what we do is I take a look at it. It's easy for me to take a plan that you made, tweak it to what I have, make sure it hits my stuff, and maybe take 2 months out of it instead of taking a year to do it myself. So we share a lot of information, we talk, just because as you talk about, like this organization, you've got to talk, you've got to let people know what's going on so that they know what's happening. So we do that. And then again, networking, I put it a second time because it's vital. You just don't know the card. As a merch manager, I walk in, I take everybody's card. Hi, how you doing? Hi, how you doing? Hi, how you doing? Take the cards, and put it in a Rolodex. And then you have some information. Because again, when you call and say, hey, I'm one of this merch management, by the way, you happen to know of X. So you talk about getting honesty, you talk about doing these other things. That's where you guys come in. And that's where what we need is that ability. Anything you can take from an emergency manager where I don't have to do it is happy to be. Honestly, I'm not going to fast. So, but that takes my burden off me. It helps me direct more towards more urgent things. Because as an emergency manager, I don't have the luxury of saying this is super important, this is not. By law, I'm actually responsible for all of them. So I have to address each aspect. So by being able to say, I have a group that's helping with this, now I check up with it instead of having to do it. So it's all about importing it. It's great that we can do that. As a vulnerability analysis, very technical term. It's not. You guys know businesses that work somewhere, you do this all the time. This is just called by different names. All this means is it's a ranking of issues, delineating. I always tell kids I'm a math degree, I can throw a 50-cent word in care occasionally, or they think I'm stupid. So for delineating is very vulnerable issue, type of issue, because it could be whatever that is. And basically what we're trying to do is figure out a ranking of what's oh my god and what's not. Okay, so if you think oh my god, what's not. So probably if it's possible. Now I'm talking, but you guys all know that things are possible, right? Everything we already said, well, anything's possible. Now, what distinguishes this is the probability. So I'll use a blizzard. So is it possible that Texas, in Houston, that we could have a blizzard? It's possible. God knows that it's possible. Yeah, we've had freezes. Now, is it probable that we won't have a blizzard with 3-foot snow drifts, 3 foot of snow and 8-foot snow drifts? Probably not. And we say that all the time. Probably not going to happen. Right. That's what we're getting to. The gist of what we're dealing with is it a high probability that something will occur? And then in a minute, we'll talk about is the damage. So if something were to occur and it has a high probability, what is the effect that will have? So is it a high probability with a high effect? That obviously makes it a high priority. If it's a moderate probability and a low impact, not so much. So that's where we're getting, and always actually just need to scale and figure something out. And if something were to occur, again, just like that blizzard, we try to best guess our estimate of or whoa. That's all kind of vulnerability analysis is, and we do it. We just get in a group. And so the easiest thing to do for me as a emergency manager is call everyone together, fire, police, EMS, public works, school, churches, everyone together, and just start saying, hey, what turns you off? What would literally stop you from being an organization right now? Bring that to the table. Just throw them up on the board. And we get everyone who talks about their bit, we get a few minutes, and then we sit down. And so if I had 5 or 6 issues, I would have presented everybody, and I would explain why it's important that my organization and people like me would have to deal with this. And that allows other people, public works or other people to understand. So for me, IT wasn't a big deal. I don't do computers. All right. But if IT went down, we have a storm and we lose IT, so school specifically. Did you know that 99% of all phones in school are VoIP, voice over internet protocol? That means that the internet goes down, you do not have communications. So now what do? You can't call. So you gotta have something. So there's backup plans. So IT, making sure the servers and everything work, and we have connectivity is a very big thing, but we don't communicate. We can't respond. So that goes into the hazard vulnerability analysis. Making sense? I appreciate you guys got it. Make sure you guys do all that. All right, so gap analysis. That's capability. So capabilities in past, very simple. Capabilities of what can I do? Capacity is how often I do it. I can run 5 miles once. When I was younger, I could do it all the time. Today, I can drive 5 miles. When you run, I can do it once, right? So, and it's just, and we do this, remember that the 5 areas of emergency management, like prevention, mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery. I do that for everything. I have to do that for every section. So just because we're responding to something doesn't mean I don't have to worry about prevention all the way through recovery from the exact same way. Does that make sense? So, and again, this is just a big overview, just trying to let you understand it. And then we come to the gap analysis. This is basically the HDA plus capabilities equals the gaps. Where if we want to do X, but we can only do Y, and Y is less than X, we have a gap. And again, when I talk about your business, you do this in private life. It's like if you want to go on vacation to Disney World, but you got to save for a year. That comes in the same thing. I want to go, but can't get it in. But when can I go? Well, I have a gap, and I've got to adjust that. And it's the gap analysis. That's all we do. That's what we do, and we look at everything. And then what happens is the gap analysis leads to a priority list. Again, the higher the weight of the issue, the higher the priority is to get to it. Does that make sense? That's the big stuff in a very high level. Okay, so enough of the technical stuff. So by the way, I like jumping out of airplanes, so people feel. Did it for many years. So again, my goal is that you understand the why we do certain things and the why I look at things. And then keep it simple. So I come from the Army, which is keep it simple, stupid. For civilians, it's keep it simple, so what everyone thinks that means. Go into that. The other thing is planning analysis or planning paralysis. People get so concerned that I'm not a planner, I'm not a planner. People plan for weddings, they plan for going to school, they plan for going to work, they plan for doing vacation, they plan for all kinds of stuff, but they don't feel that they're planners. We're just gonna have fun with this today. That's all we're gonna do. So, but if we can get past planning and planning paralysis, then we have something we can work with, right? And then again, I'm hoping to reinforce that you guys are already. That was the big side. Now that I keep so I got this. I always look at people. So I come from EMS. I look at how do we take care of people. We may lose a building, but if we save the people, it's still someone's success. Buildings can be rebuilt. We can get new cars. We can do lots of stuff, but we can't replace people. So FEMA tells us that all disasters are local, and you have to take care of yourself for 48 hours, right? It's 48, 72 hours, depending on which part goes to. And that's even if they bring it to you. So I did the shelter, so I got that person of the year because I was in Dallas. So when Ike and all those other, Hugo, all those hurricanes hit those 2 years, people came up when they dropped them off. Literally, they dropped them off and said, "Here you go," and we had to deal with it. So we're ready to handle situations for 48 hours. For feds come in, state's going to do good. And what I love is I got to let you know, Texas has more capabilities for disasters than any other state. Period. California would be number 2. Now, California's bigger, it has a little more population, but we have more capacity to do it. All right. So we have the capabilities. We have everything from urban search and rescue to wildland fire to marine units that can go out there. We had all these areas, and actually here at the campus, it has to be followed there and patients there. Actually, ambulance can handle up to 30 patients at a time on stretchers. Sorry for the instruction. But so that bus is where we're at 39. Where they said we need to. That's something that other states don't have. They don't know how that we can get 30 people on a bus. We pull 2 of them up, that's 60 people that we can put in stretchers. Or you can put 20 people in stretchers and 10 people in wheelchairs, or I can put all in wheelchairs. Whatever it needs, we can configure that and do what we need to do. That's a capability that most states do not have. All right. And just so you know, the Texas disaster declarations, I didn't know if you guys were aware of this. So when it's declared, we have a local emergency that is capacity. What's that definition of disaster? All right. This thing hates me. Sorry. So if it exceeds capacity, what do? We call our friends, that's mutual aid. Hey, what do you got? I can help. If we get past what we're getting past, or we're exceeding what we can do for ourselves, we call in the DDC office, which is through the state troopers. And that is the DPS District Disaster Coordinating Office. We call that person, they immediately pick up the phone and call the state operations center. That activates the state operations center. Now we have resources from all the entire state of Texas. So that can be done in 15, 30 minutes. It just depends on getting someone on the phone, explaining what's going on, state activation, and we go from there. I'm gonna stay on this slide since that's it went from there.
You want to stay on Texas or will you entertain from,
I'll go wherever you want to go. At least once.
so what's your early analysis of Hawaii? We see how capable Texas is.
Yes.
What's your early analysis of Hawaii? Because we may or you may not know people that are.
Oh, you don't. I think for them, the issue is they've got a wildfire and what they have geography against is their islands. They just can't drive. Right. They've got to get something to lift that either sea lift or airlift to get resources there. So it's hitting Maui, which is actually big, has a lot of population, that has the military force and every force and everything else going on. So I think they're responding perfectly from what it looks like. It got ahead of them before they thought they had to get there. They don't have experience with, so our blizzard would be their environment, right? It's a tropical environment, it's wet all the time. They don't have the fire that would go such as they do now.
My understanding was that they should have been because the tropical storms skirt those islands. And so one of the things was what you had no rain, which is unusual for a tropical area, right, for a long period of time. And then you got skirted by these high winds.
Yes, oh, absolutely. So we go back to the hazard vulnerability analysis.
Right.
So you would go back to that and said, so they probably went, we get rain all the time, therefore we're probably probability. Yeah. But someone should have said, I'm not gonna back the word. But for me, looking at it, as soon as the situation changes, you have to look at it. Again, I go back to EMS. If I'm treating a patient and the patient changes, airway breathing circulation, I go back to square one every single time to see what's going on. Some people are not so methodical. Again, so my daughter is emergency management. She was emergency manager up in Montana. But she the generation that went to school. I was the generation that came from the field that went into it. So we came from that practical experience of I've run fires, I've done this, I've done it while I'm fires. I know what to expect. She's reading it from a book. So I think when you get some of those things going on, unfortunately, experience is gained hard. So I think someone's trying to get some great experience on this, unfortunately, at the sake for other people. But I just think.
And maybe I'm not certain now. I mean,
Yeah.
someone could have called all of this, and it's like,
Oh, yeah.
responsibility.
Again, and there's so many variables because it could be the response. So do they have a lot of forest fighting equipment? Probably not. I mean, to take how many bulldozers can I fly over in a C5 to get there that will do some work and get there rapidly at the same time and everything else. We have the ability to drive somewhere. The rail doesn't work, flight don't work. We can get on the road and we can drive across this country in a few days. Worst case scenario. They're on an island. And so I think that hampers them. So they're not like California, they're so used to brush fire that every fire engine they buy a brush truck. So I mean, they buy two. So I don't think they thought about it. Again, I'm not knocking them, I'm just saying,
Like they did.
it's like if the blizzard, so when I was in Dallas, we had the Super Bowl up there, we had this ice one, right? Didn't have a lick of a road grid. We had to call them from Amarillo, who got it worse than we did. But because we had the Super Bowl, we got those snowplows. Who would have thought that we would have the ice storm in Dallas, but okay, we got ice, but it would always go away by 10 o'clock the next morning. Who would have thought that it froze again and it got worse for over 3 days? None of us thought of that. So I'm not knocking someone. You get caught because you didn't think it was going to happen. And it's very hard to keep that mentality of everything caught high in your head. Yes,
That's part of the issue, right? The possibility, so they also get a red spot. They know how to follow the red spot. So how do you follow the red spot in 80-mile hurricane wind with no rain?
Right.
Right now, you're a whole different scenario. they probably,
Again,
did it.
I've been to the job, you know, I did most of my military service in the jobs. You don't get a lot of breath from it. It runs into something wet sooner or later and stops, it's self-contained. I think there's some of that, and again, it's just like, again, they're not used to the dryness that they have. Because most of the time you get a dry period, it's for a week, 8, 10 days, not for weeks on end. And again, I think it's like anything else. If we took anyone here and said, go up to Montana and you're gonna be in charge of blizzards. That's obviously nice, that's about it. So I have empathy for them, and I think it got ahead of them, and it's just part of what you don't do all the time. You may not be able to respond effectively right away. But again, that could be on us at any given time. Again, I look outside, we don't do big grass fires in Harris County. But I hope you're not smoking and flicking your cigarette outside, 'cause it's gonna run. It's gonna run in this county. It's gonna, you know, so I'm gonna also, it's not so bad, that's kind of what I think.
No, but I mean, Texas is getting dry again. Montana has had serious lightning strikes that cause major fires. In Canada, of course, we know it's gone in Canada.
Okay.
So,
We have lots of people that don't believe in climate change. So we're really battling a lot of things when we're talking about variables changing. And we have a lot of folks that don't believe it. I mean, that's would be a major barrier to capacity, right?
Oh, yeah,
I don't believe this is ever gonna.
right, before it goes back to, you know, I'll talk in a minute, because I want you to believe it can happen.
Let's say.
So I was teaching terrorism response in the late 80s and the 90s, and people laughed at us. Like, I gotta go through this training, I don't wanna go through it. Dude, so I came to the third grade time, and I said, we gave our mission to the Marines. I was the senior medic on the national response for nuclear events in the United States, and it was so common. So the Marines came on board, they have a little lot more PR, so they got it. They don't have medics, so we get to go teach their medics what we do. So we were there, we were the nation's, hey, we lost something that was a really big boom. I was gonna be the one in charge of having the medical care for it. So it's stuff is out there. So we taught all this stuff. What I was gonna do is I got all the secret briefings. I got the briefings of saying, you know how many terrorist organizations are in the United States? 1989, you said how that we had 82 identified terrorist organizations that the United States would allow. So think about it, 87, 89, 82 identified hardcore terrorist organizations in the United States. We thought about that. 2001 happened, we really think about it now, right? So again, what you're not used to, what you don't know, can be your Achilles heel. And unfortunately, experience is gained the hard way. That's why I call it experience and not in school. And it hurts. You don't learn from experiences that are happy, you learn from experiences that are bad, right? So we're good on that. Let me back up 1 second. I wanted to make sure you saw this. So you were talking about making sure people are taken care of. Please tell people about the student program. It's
on a slideshow.
It is, but I might just take it off for a second, but I can escape. You guys are big enough to see this, right? Find my cursor. But online. I can't find my cursor. There we go. Can you still see that? Okay, so I'll just do it this way. So it's theater program. This is extremely important for knowing friends, family, if you have other organizations telling people about it. This is the state of Texas Emergency Assistance Registry. You can call 111, there's a number there. I put the link. I'm going to give you the slideshow. I have a PDF of it, and so I'll give you guys the mine slideshow. You can send it out. You click on it, it takes you right there, it tells you who's it for, what they can do. Here in Tascasita, we had a girl who was 12 years old. She had about 15 seizures a day. To the point where her leg would snap. And she fractured her finger just because of seizure. Prior to Harvey, a couple days prior to Harvey, and we knew if it's going to happen, we actually gave them a generator in the front yard connected to their house. And then the state made sure that someone came through and had fuel for it for the next week. So they came every other day to make sure the fuel levels. So steer program does that. What else? It makes sure that if we have to evacuate and you have an oxygen dependent person, that they know that they will get oxygen tanks that they can take with them. And part of what happened with, Katrina and all the others that came right afterwards was that we needed evacuation areas, needed to have little bullet pads of oxygen where people could come in, here's my tank, here's a new one, and then because there's portable generators only go for so long, they need batteries, you can't plug them in, you need to go back to a tank. So they have those abilities to do that. And then you just pull up with a fire with a rescue truck that has a cascade in it. I can pump oxygen all day long. I can fill that bottle now. I don't have to go get new. I can fill it and next person comes in, I can give them that bottle. So we have that capability to do that. But it's the visibility, the fragile, people have access. The people who already have a great system are the dialysis patients because the ESRD end stage renal dialysis, which is anyone who's been on dialysis for more than 2 years are automatically put in by federal law and Medicare. And their job is to make sure that they get taken care of. So, but if they have to evacuate, that person's coordinating care wherever they go. Where are you going? Oh, I'm going to Shreveport. Okay, hold on, we're gonna call Shreveport, let them know when you come in, you check in with them. You call this number and they'll help them get dialysis. So that's what this is for. All right? Are you doing okay?
That's kind of time that's not for you. Oh, we can go on and on. Oh, but I kind of let you know that this is one. But if I'll be, I don't want to be really like keeping on here. It's like, of course, we don't say, I don't want. Yeah, dude, I'm here as long as someone needs. And so if you don't mind, I'll continue. And if you guys, you leave, you're not upsetting me. I'm going to put the presentation. That's why I'm doing this. Yeah, no, I'll give you the presentation. So someone else will have the presentation. Have that. Sorry. My biggest thing is I've got a lot and I've got to shut up and just I got the slides.
A lot of knowledge, and that's, I mean,
Yeah, so
a lot of knowledge there.
I've hit, so I've been on the park a little bit. But again, so you've got that, if you go to that website, this, I literally pulled those check marks off the website. So it can go. Okay, well, that's not good, I can add in a spot. This is just not a David presentation, I just printed them and handed them to you. Okay, so people can't work, so this is where I say you come in, you gotta believe what happened, just like the terrorism thing and everything else, oh, it ain't gonna happen, it's gonna happen. One of the biggest fears right now is that Galveston is due for a major hurricane. So 2 years ago, they predicted that we would have a major Cat 3 or above that comes up the ship channel. So what does that do here? That makes you guys have a beachfront park. So think about, comes up the ship channel, you got a surge 12 to 18 feet high. It pushes up. Hobby is now underwater. It pushes up and all that water is now pushing backwards. And that pushes back up into Lake Houston, back up to San Jack River, and people all the way up in by Spring. And I live in Porter, just by us, there'd be areas of us that would be covered more. So think about that surge that comes through and picks up and just pushes everything through with wind. And if it hits on the right tide, it's even more, it's even worse. So that's something that everyone's been planning for. We don't start running around telling them you don't want to bring people out, but you gotta plan it. We might have that. That is a distinct possibility. And if you look at the cycles of hurricanes, that's what we're bringing. So believe me, you can't have it. Tell others. Again, I want you to share anything I can give you, share. All right. Then you let the people, you guys are leaders, you're going to tell them about it. You don't have God's gift. If you just let people know and you can tell them where to get resources like you were talking about, it's a win. Right? You can't take a horse to water, you can't make a drink. Some people will not believe it's going to happen until it happens and it's too late. You know, God bless them. But those that will listen, sometimes it's like Jesus and the apostle. You start with one, you go to another one, you go to another one, you go to another one. Sooner or later you get everybody, but you got to start with one. So look at that. And then the example. I pulled this up and this is just all the stuff they tell you to put in your disaster preparedness kit. It's the tape. It's the get boots so you don't step in the water and you don't get cut. It's switch organized. It's all those other things that we talk about. Again, if you just give those messages and let people know what's going on, I think it'll work. Why is this added? All right. Okay, so now this will be fairly quick. So I took all of the disaster as a group, I put them in 6 categories. It's usually 5, but I took 6 because flooding is a little different, so I took it out. All right, so we'll go through this. And what I put in here is issues that would represent that. And then I have on the side my practical steps for what to do. So if you can remember that, and again, I come from medical where it's always air breathing, circulation, disability, exposure. I start going through my ABCDE, FGHIJK on how to treat somebody. I don't get lost. So some things are perfect, some things are not, right? Yay, nay, yay, nay, yay, nay. All the yays win. So, yeah, man, this is. We look this up. I'll show you just part one. Being plugged in. So situation where this is a great slide because it talks about it in an educational setting. But what's situational awareness? If I ask right now, what's situational awareness to you?
Being very,
Being aware of environment. How? And it's simple. It's your 4 senses, because that's an invitation, Jack. Don't taste anything. So 4 senses, past history, and you have a brain that says something might be going wrong. That's situational awareness. If you walk down a dark street and you're walking and you feel footprints behind you, do you not start looking around and saying, where's it going on? Or you're charging, or you're thumbing something if you have that. You might be thumbing something on, okay, I'm gonna make sure. But you're looking, where's my light? Where can I go? Do I hit my phone and start making a phone call, let someone know where I'm at? Situational awareness. It's the back, those hairs in the back of your neck that tell you something's going on. That's situational awareness. That's just good. As an educator, I got to throw a slide in there because you got their definition in once. I do. Okay, this will be quick. Another few minutes and we're done. So, man-made emergencies. Active shooter, whether it's school, business, wherever you're at. Look at the people up and down in just north of Dallas where they had the guy come in the shopping center and started shooting someone. So it doesn't matter. So what do we do? No matter what it is, action, terrorism, technology law, and IT, power, fuel loss, or it's transportation, such as can't get something in, run out of everything, or having to something icky goes spilling everywhere. Couple of it, and I have the same practical measures for every single one of these because this is, I believe in this. Have situational awareness, what's going on, and that gap analysis in your own head is, I wonder if I need to do this, and how can I do it? That's your gap analysis that you're doing on your own. And then you're coming up with an action plan that says, if this happens, I'm out of here. So you're doing it already. It's having simple planning to keep with family and friends. Think about what I talked about with the school, and they couldn't talk. They can text. Text runs off a different system. So texting somebody, what we were teaching for kids in the standard response protocol was every 10 minutes, you need to go text your parents. So we were training teachers to say, hey, we're locked down here and we're not doing anything. Text your Bobby, Billy, Betty, you 4. I want you to text your mom and say you're safe, but you can't talk and we'll talk later. I come to the next 4. I want you to do the same. I don't want to remove the system. So 4 or 5, 4 or 5, 4 or 5, 4 or 5. And it gives the kids something to do. So put a clock your phone, put your timer on there for 10 minutes and do it again. Okay. You got to keep quiet. Same thing. So you're giving them something to do, but you're not overloading the system, and text going through a lot quicker than phone calls. So knowing that, have somebody that is out of state, you contact them, at least let them know you guys are alive or where you're headed. Okay. So if you have a relative or a friend that's out of state, say, listen, this is going on. All I need is you to be, if you don't hear from me in 2 days, 1 day, whatever you feel is necessary, please call somebody, let them know this is where I'm going. This is where I'm at. Stuck on I-10, head to San Antonio. We'll be there next year. So, whatever that is, at least someone knows that you're alive. And then make sure your family knows who you're calling so that they can do it. So Harvey showed us again. Some people could not communicate. My in-laws in posted up there in Grand Mission, the southwest side. We live here because my wife wanted to be close enough, but not that close. So they're an hour away. So, but if we know we can do it, I've got a sister out of town, and she has a sister out of town that we can communicate and let them know we're okay. And even though I couldn't talk to them, I could talk to my sister in Detroit and let them know what was going on. So the family's aware and we're not looking for people, right? So weather radio, no hand crank radio, costs $8 to $12. I'd say Radio Shack, but they're no longer there. They're a simple thing. Why? Because you want to listen to the news. You need to know what's going on. All right? So think about that. So if you have one, you have none. That's what we talked about in the Army. If you have one, you have none because someone's going to shoot it. And it's going to break. So you don't have it. You need to have some capabilities. You don't have to buy everything, but can you have something else that will help you? So think about if you have a phone, again, you have your phone. How else can you communicate if you don't have your phone? What other ways do you have? So if your phone loses power, how do you communicate? I don't have that answer for you, but it's something you can look at. Is it a simple as carrying one of those charging blocks or something else? Or is it you have a radio? You have someone that has a neighbor that has a ham radio, some way of communicating out. There you go. So have that. Know the air, water, when it take off and shut off. So no matter what you got, you know how to shut something off so it doesn't hurt you. So if you're in a house that loses everything, and let's say we have the hurricane, it's gas, it's power, everything else, but the gas comes back on, your pilot light doesn't go off. You know how to shut that off so you don't have a boom on your own. You don't want to walk through the bubbles through the water and figure out that that's natural gas. So having food and water is great, but I can tell you after eating stuff for many years that is not warm and out of a bag, you'd like to have something warm at some point. So it is a great morale builder that you have something and heat it and go, oh, this is great. Charcoal, and can you have a grill? Do you have something you can cook with? Because most of our power is going to be out for a day or two, right? We're not going to go, can you do a day where you cook at least one meal for that day for your kids and grandkids or anyone else? You know, you're on to the graduation and how do you get out of here? So just like, we walk in here, I know it's over here, there's 2 doors here, 2 doors here. I do it because my wife was a flight attendant, so I do two. And if you need to leave, get out. So do that. So, and I put this in all the slides. So can you use a gap analysis when you're dealing with a man-made thing? Absolutely. You just don't call it that. Your brain starts processing it. If you take a deep breath and have situational awareness, when you take a deep breath, it slows down this frontal cortex slows down. Okay, now you can be able to proceed and it clears your head. So now you have your plan. It doesn't have to be 15 pages long. What's my situation? What's happening? What's my emergency? What could kill me? What could hurt me? What could hurt my family? And how do I get out of here and take care of it? Okay, we're done. Next. Make sense? So I put this up here and I use this for all of us so we're done here in the next couple of minutes. We're going to follow the same process. So with temperature extremes, we got a few today. What 112 when I got out of the car ish. So temperature, high and low, wind. So not only you don't have that hurricane, but the hurricane is 75 miles an hour. What if you have, or tornado? So what if you have 73 miles an hour? You want to go out and play? No, because it's picking up lawn furniture, it's picking everything up, and it's creating all these missiles that are trying to kill you. Coastal storms, hurricanes, lightning, hail. We all get those, right? So all that stuff can happen, but they don't change my practical measures. Why? Because they work. I don't have to learn 15 different things. I know one thing, I do it 10 times. I don't do 10 things at one time. All right. So situational awareness. Do I have a plan? Do I have some ways of communicating and getting information? Do I have a backup plan for something else that I don't know? Do I have a shut house or how to make sure that I'm safe where I'm at? Do I have food? Can I cook? Do I have water? Do I have my routes of evacuation? Questions? What do you think? Your turn. You got other suggestions that we put in this? I'll use them. Just get emergency management right here. So you come up, but I took this and I distilled this stuff down to what makes sense. If you create this mantra, you never have to worry about anything else. I didn't do it, I meant, as in, am I forgetting something? Because it's hitting your key areas of what's going on. You just insert your situation and off you go. Are we doing okay? Okay, you guys got quiet also. Sure. So flooding, we're pretty good at this. I'll find it. So flooding, excessive rainfall, and lack of drainage. Okay, everyone knows what happened on the river. We were doing great with Harvey. Awesome job until that open conduit and it came flooding on down. So all the people that were in those $1 million homes right on the river, they're like, no, we're doing fine. We talked to them before nightfall, we're doing great. 2 o'clock in the morning, so they start calling us, hey, we're on our roof. You're on your roof. Which is probably like, wow. So we got notified that the water was coming after it had already come. And so at 3 o'clock in the morning, when there's no power, we're not going out to go save them. We could, there were crocodiles reported in the lake. And so no one wanted to go out there. The Cajun Navy was like, we ain't going out there with the crocodiles. So we had to worry about that. I got on the snake. But we had to wait until morning to do, as soon as the sun came up, we started doing the red drivers. We went from there back to Walden back over there. So we went back and forth. So it can also be a dam break portrait again. Lake Conroe. So Lake Conroe is obligated to reduce the lake when it gets full. They are obligated, that is a law, and they must do that. So because I just went through a meeting with the San Jack River Association, and they're very adamant that when it reaches X, they hit the button, the gates open, and they drain that sucker down to whatever it's pre-authorized to go down to. It all comes this way. All right. So fire. Next week. So I'm not talking about regular house fires. You know what to do. Get out. All right. Don't go back there. But the big wildfire, and we were talking about it earlier. We're sitting on a tinderbox right now. And if it could run from one end of the county to the other, if it got into some of these woods and everything else that, I mean, you walk on your grass. I watered my grass yesterday and I still walked out there and heard crunch. Doesn't matter. And people don't realize that, well, I'll put my water grab on. The water creates such high heat, the fire, that it evaporates your water. That's why your garden hose isn't putting that fire out, and it's 50 feet away from you. That radiant heat is drying everything before it gets to it. That's going on. But same situational awareness. So again, simple plan, weather radio, have a backup plan, how to shut stuff off. Again, you don't have your gas on if you have a wildland fire. You know how can you turn your gas off if you have a gas house so that it doesn't go boom, right? So another thing, make sure your propane tanks, propane gas is the ground cover. Natural gas goes up. So if you have natural gas, it's going to go and blow your roof off. Your propane tank, it's going to blow up your foundation. All right. So if you bring propane into your house and it ignites, it's blowing out this way. Natural gas is going that way. All right. So one's heavier than the other, one's lighter than the other. But again, guys see anything that I should take away from wildland fires on this? So again, that's my point is if you do something 15 times instead of one time, one time, it's a much easier way of doing this. And then earthquake. I love this slide. Because I should know why, and she didn't believe it. So I had checked on Wednesday. I looked at the number of earthquakes in Texas. 12 earthquakes in the past 24 hours, from Tuesday to Wednesday in Texas. 69 in the last week, 239 in the past 30 days, and 2,941 in the past year. I don't think that. There's a magnitude 1.5 or above. So what does that mean? Now, we may not feel that earthquake, but if there was an earthquake that happened, let's say that runs between here and San Antonio, would be affected? Absolutely, would be affected. So how many fires do we have in this area that might be affected by earthquake? Every single road we have. I come from the East Coast and we had water. We have more bridges here than I had in Maryland, and I was on the water. So all those flyovers are susceptible. So when that ground moves, you're not going to get on that bridge because someone's got to go check and make sure it's okay. So your transportation system is now kaput. So think about that. So I also put that, I thought about that was, so when you go to San Antonio, you go to Fredericksburg, you might go up and you might feel something, and now you know what's going on because we have earthquakes here in Texas. I did not know that until I did a hazard vulnerability analysis and someone told me about it. And I was like, yep. Okay, so diseases. All right. So as I mentioned in my promo, in my intro, I actually dealt with the Ebola patient. So I was the guy responsible for getting the patients from Presbyterian Dallas to Love Field on the CDC aircraft and then to Atlanta. I had an operation in Atlanta that picked them up from the airport and took them to the CDC. The great part is, because I was in Dallas at the time, we already had 3 false reports of Ebola in Houston. So we were prepared. Because I had the whole state of Texas. I had 16 states in Texas. So being able to deal with it. Again, treat it like anything else. I did put up your anthrax because did you realize that anthrax is endemic to Texas? So there is two types of anthrax. There is cutaneous anthrax, cutaneous meaning skin. So it's out there, especially from San Antonio west, you're hitting that I-35 corridor west, you're hitting areas where you walk through, you can kick up anthrax. So it will get on you. So that's why we're when wear boots and long pants, and it'll look like little sores in your skin. And then there is respiratory anthrax. So the difference is how can I make it lighter than air to float and weaponize it versus being heavier and clinging to you. Not that hard. So think about if you had some clay and you beat it down hard enough to create a powder, right? Or if I create a fine enough powder and I blow that in your face, that cutaneous anthrax is now respiratory anthrax and it's inside your lungs. That's why we're afraid of the white powder. But everything here is we've had to deal with in Texas. COVID's the easy one. SARS is we've had to deal with that. That's a severe respiratory allergy, mostly done in Canada, but we had to deal with it here 2009. We dealt with that, and at the same time, we had bird flu in 2009. We also had talk about that. Plague is endemic to here as well. So you have all these nice little things. So I always tell people, please don't take offense. Life, let's see if I can say it right without army version. Life is nothing but a sexually transmitted terminal disease. Okay, so life is trying to kill you. So you've got to be aware. So it can something fall from the sky, or you can inhale something and it can kill you. So you just got to realize what's going on. Influenza actually is the same subvariant as COVID. They both share that in common. That's why it's equally transmittable. So you have that, and then you have, of course, E. coli that comes up almost every 5-6 months. You'll see a big scare on that. HEB's calling, no, let us back, or something happened with COVID, or whatever it is. That's going on around here as well. But again, what are I changing? I may not have to worry about turning my water shut off. Okay, I'll take that one out. But it's something that at least you think about what I have to do if I have public health emergency, what's going on. So, and as you saw at the beginning of COVID, we do not fund preparation in the United States. So it is only based off of response. EMS agents, this department only gets paid if they take someone to the hospital. They do not get paid if you don't go. So they do not get paid to buy those benefits. They do not get to buy the extra medications. It all comes out of the money. So how are you getting all that stuff to everybody? That's why we're bidding into COVID. You remember all the beds and we had to worry about PPE and all these other things were going on because no one stocked enough. If they had enough for the department here and they could go for a week before they had to get resupply, that's great, unless everyone else in the world is doing the exact same thing. The supply chain breaks. So again, in principle, we can do the exact same thing. Again, if you don't need something, you take it out. Okay. But are you guys seeing what I'm looking at? And again, situational awareness lets you understand. You create your plans. Again, whether it's vacation or you gotta do something emergent, or you just want to take, if you're working and you want to take leave, make a plan so you can take off, you can do what you want to do. So don't have that paralysis, that planning paralysis by planning, get involved with it. And I say it can be solved, not that you're truly solving it, but for you, you can solve part of this by having the plan, having that practical aspects and saying, I can deal with this. And not overwhelmed by the plethora of things that can kill you. You have to understand you can make it. You survive this long, you can keep on going. All right. And then after that is I appreciate your time and any more questions. And I apologize for the when I practice, I'm pretty something like that. Then with that, I'll give you the thumb drives you guys can. All right. When people from now, then the thing more. So if you can take several courses online. It used to be the old, there's both payment hospital or something. Yeah, there's people, you have to get a FEMA student ID number. And the way you get that is by being part of an organization. So if you're taking through a task casita, I would talk to them and see that because when you go to FEMA, it's going to say you have a FEMA student ID number. If you do not, then you put in and they send it back. As long as someone at an entity such as Tascasita can say, yes, you're there, you'll get your number within a couple hours. And then once you have a FEMA ID number, you go look at the FEMA courses under the, it's independent studies. So your 100, 200, 400, 1, 2, 7, 8, and all these other courses are online.
That's new.
That's it. Yeah, it is on it. So, but you can do that, but you need to be verified, it will say, are you a student, you're a responder, are you a volunteer? It'll give you different categories, as long as they can validate someone's name on the list. You're good.
When we've already taken them, they're already in.
Yes. Yeah, so, but if you haven't taken any, there's there. And what I love about those courses, you can play the slides. You can print them out if you like them to be printed versus, that. And they update them all the time as an instructor. Every time they update like 1, 2, 7, and 8, I have to retake those courses again. Because I have to be able to teach the latest and greatest. So, but they cover a variety of things, everything. So in 2001, 2001-ish, 2002, when it started, probably 30 courses. Now there's probably 200 of them. There's everything from how to do planning, how to do pandemic stuff, how to do fire, how to do an assessment on how to take care of floods, how to deal with schools or hospitals or civic organizations in disasters, kids in disasters. They have all those courses that you can take. And honestly, it gives you a keyword, you type in pediatrics or a child, and it pops up how to deal with peds in disasters and pandemics. Hope that helps. But if you look up FEMA independent study, that keyword will pull it up for you. It'll take you, you'll see a nice little schoolhouse on it. But yeah, you just need to get the FEMA ID. You guys can coordinate with whoever to get that so they can verify. What else can I can lie to you for this once.
I definitely think that this group would benefit from your knowledge, in terms of we have different focuses. I'm, as a veteran social worker, I'm all about prevention. So when that of the 5 categories was mentioned, like that's where I want to spend my time is, when we're working with homebound seniors or disabled folks. But I would put all of those things into place before the disaster actually happens. So to me, I would love it if this group would spend more time training people. Because when you mentioned, I was smiling when you were talking about the weather, because I'm a native Texan, lived here my whole life except for about 20 years I was in Cleveland, Ohio. But I was dropping my kid off at in Houston at the University of Houston, came back, and then all of a sudden it started hailing. And I was on, I don't even know what road I was on, but it's like 6 lanes. And all of these people around me started stopping. And I was like, well, I didn't learn to stop on a highway in the middle of a hailstorm. I was like, why are they doing that? And so it's very interesting because people in front of you are stopping, you are stopping.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like a,
Well, people have time for reactions to stop.
Yeah.
Stop. Pull over. Yeah. Well, up in Dallas, and the same thing, like, if it rains really hard, they drive really fast. But hail comes, they're like, what the hell is this? Maybe just pull over. It's like we make it through, zombie apocalypse trying to get through traffic. So, yeah.
it's like the things that I think are so helpful is, we prep our kids to do driver's education. And then we're not re-evaluating those rules of the road until they get a ticket or they have to take a defensive driving class. And so I'm like, a lot of this stuff is common sense to us at one part of our lives, right? Like and then, we have a lot of retired folks in this group. You're away from your workplace where you get a lot of information. And so it's like, I'm familiar with all of this because the school district prepares me. I take lots of different things to RAN and I do continuing education as a social worker. So I'm getting lots of information. My goal is to get that information to people that are not in the mainstream, I guess. And so that, like, what to do in a lightning storm, my daughter is wildlife rescue trained, and so she was talking to me about lightning drills, and they were out and, backpacking with all of these kids, and I was like, I've been a scout leader for a long, long time. I don't remember lightning drill. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, to me, that is so tense. I can't even imagine
Right.
putting that into a smaller thing, but if we broke it down and shared with people like about what they need to do in certain weather circumstances, because it is that thing here. I've never evacuated during a hurricane. I've never done that. Well, the hurricanes and the flooding are different in some cases now than they were. So I think you're a wealth of information. It's really, enjoyable. Thank you so much. Well, I don't want to.
But yeah, thanks very much. Okay.
For all this.
Yeah, again, my apologies to go to the wall. But, so I learned when I was teaching MS, how do you take 30, 40 years to distill it down for someone in and out? And it's very difficult to do. So,
Maybe one.
yeah, well, like I said, at home, without anything going on, I did this in 22 minutes. I got this. But, again, my problem, I see people and I want to make sure that everyone, I'd rather have understanding than quickness. So, but again, I hope it made sense to you guys. Thanks. Yes, I'm gonna, I told them, I'm gonna there and I'll get the thumb drive. And,
Well, thank you all for your attendance. Everything.
Thank you.
We're doing this once a month. Sometimes same place. Next time is the training. 90 minutes.
That will be.
That is 90 minutes.
But it would love to hear from the supporter about.
Hold on.
Good.
That's what we talked to the board.
I like the young girl. So, yeah. Says Monday.
FEMA.gov. Oh, yeah, once you go in there, then it's just an open field, because I've already,
Are you also trying to get here? They try to Zumba Monday for something?
it is, it's pretty,
I don't know.